Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. This is the Series 7 Guru coming to you from my off-grid studio, getting our kicks on Route 66. We have our always very special guest. Well, most Tuesday, Brian joins us, the Test Geek himself, managing member of Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. He's been kind enough to join us on most Tuesdays and more importantly, give you a 20% discount on his content. So check him out. We get done with some housekeeping admin. We'll start with a victorious test taker in the house.
Yay!
Brittany. He's had a very challenging testing journey and has showed a lot of resilience. So give some thought to questions you may ask her. We'll get that done. And then Brian and I will knock out any content questions you have for any FINRA or NASA exam. When you are asking questions while you're giving thought to what you may want to ask Sydney, tell us what exam you're taking and where you're joining us from. We're here every Tuesday. It's helpful if you do have a question to tell us what exam you're taking. Are you taking the SIE? Are you taking the 7? Because there's content that overlaps. Now, if you're using my channel, I think is the best free supplement to your study materials, and it's organized in playlists. So if you're taking your SIE, you go find your SIE playlists. There's 4 of them. The playlists are in suggested watch order. The videos are in suggested watch order. It's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. If you're looking for a particular topic, use the search bar. Put in there intrinsic value or digital assets or whatever, and that will come up. Now, if you're looking for a paid supplement, I think the best paid supplement is a Kaplan QBank. You can get a Kaplan QBank for $50, $60. And the 7 is $55.80, 3,600 plus questions. Most importantly, performance tracker. You combine that with my friend Brian, who is the master of distillation of that all that stuff in his video course, and he gives us a 20% discount. If you go all in a Kaplan QBank and Brian has paid supplements, I'd say 150, 160. Brian's about 150 something for the QBank. I do teach Kaplan classes. They hire my LLC, Guru Exam Prep LLC, to teach an SIE, which I'm currently teaching. If you're joining us, thank you for joining us. Series 7, the second month of each quarter, so that'd be February, and a 66, the third month of each quarter. We also do a weekly Q&A jam session on my booking page. The booking page is Dean Tinney, tutoring.setmore.com. So you can go join us if you'd like for a weekly Q&A jam session. That lends itself more to QIDs I can bring up on a whiteboard and share with you. We also have a Guru Nation book club, and that's available on the page as well. This month's reading is She-Wolves. It's about legendary ladies in the securities industry. Ladies like Abigail Johnson at Fidelity, Muriel Siebert, first lady member of the New York Stock Exchange. And we'll be doing that as our book club this month. What I'm trying to do is find books that have some testable content as well as some fun as well. We have different Reddit communities. You can ask Sydney. Sometimes I would have to tell Sydney, please stay off the Reddit. Because, there's a lot of people who are nervous there. But if you're taking your Series 6, we have a subreddit called R Series 6. You're taking SIE or Series 7, we have R Series 7. If you're taking 63, 65, 66, we have R Series 66. And if you're taking 9, 10, 57, 24, we have R Series 24. We also have a Facebook community called Baby Brokers doing hat tricks. We're coming up on 800 members there. Hat trick is 3 successes in a row, testing victories. SIE 663 or 767, SIE 766. You get the idea. And baby broker is a term of endearment in the securities industry. All right, so I think that takes care of our housekeeping. Let's see if we have any questions for Sydney. And then we will circle back and answer any questions people have. So let's see. Boom, boom. Oh, Lady Brill in the house. She is also a victorious test taker, Sydney, that joined us like you have. I'm hoping to get more people like Lady Brill and Sydney that come in and share their victories with us. So, all right, let's see. Okay, Sydney, what would you like to say to these test takers? Are you there? It looks like you might have disappeared already. Did we lose you? Sydney?
Where'd you go?
I have no idea. Looks like we lost her. Okay, well, that's fine. We'll proceed with our normal program. we'll proceed with our normal programming. Let me get rid of this. Boom, boom, boom. And there we are, Brian, you and I, back to our normal programming.
You know, Dean, I always like to hear feedback from people who.
Of course, of course. Can you help with the visualization of overbought and oversold? John, do me a favor. Send me those QIDs at Series 7 Guru at guruexamprep.com, and I'll see them. This venue doesn't lend itself well with doing that. But overbought, it's counterintuitive. Overbought is a contrarian theory that if something is overbought, there's no buyers left. And that means that it's going to go down, right? So if I say, for example, the mansions are overbought, that means there's not going to be, welcome back, Sydney. We're not going to be able to find more buyers. And it's a contrarian theory. Theory isn't truth, just a way of explaining things. Oversold, same thing. If it's oversold, that means we're running out of sellers, which would be a wonderful thing technically, right? Because it means nothing but up. So overbought, contrarian means weakness. It's a negative bearish indicator, and oversold is a bullish indicator. If you get it, it's just recognition, but I'm more than happy. Send me the email. I'll look at those QIDs and explicate them accordingly. Same thing, Cooper. We do explications or more lend itself to our weekly Q&A jam session. But send that to me by email, and I'll either explicate it for you in video format, or I'll have it and bring it up for our next one. All right. So, Sydney, alternative minimum tax, Cooper, and then we'll turn it over to Sydney. The AMT, there's only two test questions, recognition. It's a suitability question. I say, Sydney, are you subject to the AMT? It's either a yes or a no. She's going to know whether she's subject to the alternative minimum tax.
Right. At front door.
Mike, UPS guy's delivering it. Anyways, if she says yes, I say, Sydney, I can't recommend to you industrial development revenue bonds,
right?
Private activity bonds, because they're taxable. And I can't recommend to you public purpose non-essential bonds, stadiums. So it's a recognition suitability question on the test. So I would imagine, Cooper, that's what you encountered was that. But again, send me the QID and I can see exactly what you're looking at. Okay, so before we lose Sydney again, Sydney, what would you like to tell our test takers about your testing journey?
It's glitching a bit, but essentially my journey started I think a couple years ago, and I ended up getting my MBA. So I ended up taking like a huge break in between studying. And I was defeated by the 7 a couple times. And I really wanted to give up at times, but honestly, it was all Dean Tinney and Brian Lee that kind of kept me motivated, and saw like a confidence in me that I didn't really have in myself at the time. I literally couldn't thank the two of them enough. The material that I was able to like overcome, in terms of like not fully grasping certain topics, like I was able to get over with Dean. And now the information is so embedded in my head that I'm able to help, friends that are taking the exam, just different topics that they struggle with, certain kind of tricks and tips that I learned along the way. And so I passed my 7 in December, and now I'm on to the 66. So kind of the journey right now.
I love it. Lady Brill, who's another victorious test taker, says, how do you feel now that you're done testing? I think you still have one more, right? You have your 66?
One final one. Yep. That I'll be sitting a month. So.
Yeah. As I told you, you got to stay resilient, and Sydney's certainly proof of resiliency. And I really used to tell her, listen, this stuff, right? You just got to, not be second guessing yourself. But I always say it's so important that you're confident in the execution of your study plan. You're confident in yourself. And most importantly, you're confident in your answers. That is so important. Now, I get lots of people who ask me, do I have breakpoints for tutoring? And I say, oh, that's a good question. Are you saying, can you sign a letter of intent and agree to buy a certain number of hours of tutoring, and then I'll give you a discounted rate up front? And as Sydney knows, the answer to that question is no. However, she became such a good tutoring person that I did give her a right of accumulation, price of accumulation. Remember, you don't get the discount till you've actually bought something. And she bought enough to it. And I said, come on, this is on me. We're going to get this done. You're going to pass your test. P.S. If I didn't think she would pass, I wouldn't be spending all kinds of time with her because that would be bad for her and that would be bad for me. All right, let's see.
Well,
What exam did she take? She took her SIE, her 7. I think you're working on your 66, right?
Yes. I took my 7, but the 7 was a little more difficult for me, mainly because I had really bad testing anxiety. I don't know what it was, but the material at first, I don't think I was studying the correct way, but going through Kaplan's textbook helped me tremendously. I took notes, like very detailed notes on the entire textbook. I then went from there to the Q Bank. I also, for this, for my December exam, I also had STC and I had Notman, and I just kind of went.
Man, I'll tell you what, she bought. Good
I had a
news.
book.
She has the resources, but man, I said, don't get too many voices in your head, but
Uh,
she's got a mom. Hey, Amir, we owe kudos to people like Sydney, because if you like those walkthrough exams, Sydney was always giving me permission. You know, she's paying, for those shared screen tests. And, I charged $750 for those. And she was always kind enough to say that I could share her exams with other folks who were testing. So that means, Amir, we might have some 66 exams that maybe Sydney will do with me, that she'll give me permission as well to do. And the other thing that was nice about Sydney, having all those course materials, we were able to get permission from STC and Knopman to put some of that up on the channel as well. So if you like those, stay tuned, because there's always more of those coming around. Oh, let's see. Let's see. We have anything else for you, Sydney?
Anyone on the live?
Looks like you're a test taker. Looks like that's pretty much it. All right. Well, thank you so much. Like I say, you're always welcome on the channel, Lady Brill. We always want victorious test takers. I see that Amir passed his exam. Amir, we love it when you take the time to come back. We ring the bell for testing victories. And Amir, we love it. It just is good for morale when people see victorious test takers coming back and sharing their journey. So if you're out there on your journey, please remember you're not on your own. You have our Tuesdays. You have the weekly Q&A jam session. You have people like Sydney and Lady Brill who are empathetic. They know what you're going through. And someday this will all be through. I always joke, when you're watching through the valley of death, walking through the valley of death, you got to keep walking. I'm off grid, and my brother had problems with his solar system, and we've been trying to fix it. And I go, Chris, it is what it is. We just got to keep working on it, because you can't be off grid without reliable power. Right. So, all right. Thank you so much, Sydney. You can stick around or join us next time. And back now to our regularly scheduled program, which is Brian and I helping test takers with content they may have. So let's see where we left off. Boom. I'm testing for my 66 again on Thursday. I'm averaging a 77 on my STC finals. I got an 88. 83 on Brian's. I think Brian has the best correlation for these exams. And so I feel pretty good. I'm worried about that 88, that you may be memorizing STC questions, because their Q bank isn't as deep. I like the 83. This is Tuesday. I don't know when you did Brian's. I'm thinking you're looking pretty good. I don't think you should be nervous based on those score shadows. Your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, those scores are the 88, Dean. I'm right with you. That I don't. It's interesting how you and I are both like saying 88.
Yeah.
The 83 is a pretty good correlator to the test.
Yeah.
That gives me a little hope. I don't think you should be nervous. It sounds like the terminology.
Yeah, well, the only thing that we see there is, remember, test question on 66, standard deviation. Right, there's a variance there, so we don't really like that variance of 88 there. I mean, it's a good thing. I'd rather have variance on the 88 on the high side than the low side.
Good on the low side, yeah.
Jeff, welcome. Can you explain alternative investment for 65, please? And thank you for what you're doing, sir. Brian, I don't know. There's a lot of potential answers. I would say that primarily what I'd be thinking about here would be things that aren't traditional, plain vanilla things. like, not like an open-end mutual fund. I kind of like that, Brian. I would go with you as well. Brian is saying he would be thinking partnerships,
Limited.
REITs,
Yeah.
hedge funds. I like that. The point, I think, what I would say on 65 is that you have a heightened suitability or recommendation hurdle with alternative investments because they're not the plain vanilla things that we know how they work, right? They're things that can, have glitches in them. So I like that. I might add to that. Maybe
an ETN.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. I might add to that an ETN. Yeah. I think the main takeaway, Jeff, would be heightened suitability. All right.
And that's because these are available only to a limited amount of investors.
Yeah, in fact, some firms don't even have
investors. Yeah.
Right on. I love it, Brian. Jeff, some firms don't even allow you to do business and alternative investments. I joke, one of my favorite things, right? Could be a problem, is a problem, never be a problem. If I don't let reps do alternative investments, I don't have any kind of a problem. So.
And as far as a test, again, because of the variance of your draw, anywhere from probably 3 to 5 questions in any of these 4 categories.
Well, Cooper, thank you so much for joining us. We're our prayers with everybody in Southern California. Be safe. What craziness. I mean, oh my God. When Mother Nature does her thing, sometimes, man, you go, wow, as much as you think you can tame Mother Nature, well, you cannot. Now, I hear we had some strong winds again today. I haven't had a chance to check on a Cooper, but be safe. Thanks for joining us. I'm very familiar with Southern California. I spent a lot of years in Southern California. So every time I see those pictures, I'm just like, oh my God, crazy. Fire is just crazy. I had a ring camera on my cabin, and the optical illusion, my neighbor's place caught on fire. One of the things here off grid that everybody uses is propane, and it's very dangerous because propane is, goes kaboom. And so one of the reasons I was helping my brother, finance fixing his solar, I said, Chris, you've got to stick a dynamite in your living room. You shouldn't have propane in a big buddy heater. You need to be using your mini split, your heat pump that runs off solar. And so if you're having problems with your solar, let's fix it. But anyways, my guy next door, he had a propane tank and that was inside. I guess his parents chipped on it. But on my ring camera, I was in Vegas, Brian, I may have told you this, and it looked like the fire was literally across the yard just because of the optical illusion. So crazy. And Cooper, I've seen some of those ring cameras that, and boy, what? So just be safe, my friend. 66, what are the most likely option questions to appear? I think it's a waste of your time and resources to be invested in options on the 66.
Correct.
I would think your 7 is adequate. If not, I would guess B, assign it to the universe and spend that time elsewhere. Now, Shadow, we do have people sometimes that are taking a 66 that haven't taken a 7 because they don't have sponsorship. So I realize I may be saying something to you that isn't true, that perhaps you don't have base knowledge from having recently taken a 7. But if you tell me that you missed your mark on the 66 because of options, I'm going to say, you had a bigger problem. Your thoughts, Brian?
Absolutely. Yeah. 1 or 2. Just like any test, I can tell you at least one of those will be a hedge question.
Always, right? How do we protect?
Most likely a protective put or a
I with you, buy a put, right? Yeah. I even go so far as to say on the answer set, buy a put.
Almost, yeah, always, yeah.
Can you review? I like this, Brian. A lot of people take exception to your version of strong, semi-strong, weak questions. I always tell them that you're more than happy to articulate your version. Now, before you do your version, by the way, that being said, nobody's better than Brian on this stuff because remember, Brian is completely focused on the test and not getting a CFA or doing any of that stuff. So, Brian, I may have told you that I had a CFA who took exception with my simple, keep it simple student answer to the question. I said, there's a reason people solicit Brian and I for answers and not CFAs. Because the guy gave a 2-paragraph explanation that required basically 1 sentence. I'll let you, having said that, Brian, what would you say to Shadow?
again, and I'm not here to defend my opinions. I don't give opinions.
Yeah.
It's like elbows. Everybody's got at least two of them, right? So, all I am concentrated on, all I care about is what shows up on the test, how it most likely shows up on the test, and how you should answer it on the test. That's it. Nothing else. No ego behind any of this. So what I have in my class notes specifically on the efficient market hypothesis is typically the terminology, the language that shows up on the test. Now, I understand that the textbooks, and it's not just Kaplan, it's STC, it's Past Perfect, it's all these guys, they include whether or not technical or fundamental analysis would be useful or not useful, but the test questions almost never focus on the technical versus fundamental. It simply asks what information is available if the hypothesis is in the weak form. What information is available in the semi-strong category of the hypothesis? Not what is not required, what is not going to be helpful. That's generally not what's going to be asked on the test. It's what information is available when we classify the hypothesis as semi-strong, strong, or weak. That's it. That's all there is to it. So yeah, it's going to differ from the textbook. I get emails all the time. Hey, the textbook says this, you say that. I said, because the test says that, because that's what I'm here to do.
I had the same thing happen to me, Brian. Somebody said, my textbook says. I go, well, I probably not what you want to hear, but I don't really care what your textbook says. I care about how it gets tested. The way I think of this is not Brian, this is me, Shadow. I think of strong as nothing works. I like to go to either end and then hit the middle, right? So strong, nothing works. Weak, maybe a fundamentalist, technical doesn't work. And then the whole point of this, again, is hypotheses aren't true, right? I mean, that theory aren't true, hypotheses aren't true. I get into my brother all the time about hypotheses. He has a hypothesis about a certain thing. I have it. I said, Chris, we may both be wrong. I think my hypothesis is better because it explains more with less work. But, hey, but as Brian's point, is it informative? Now, at the end of the day, if this is something you believe in, strong form particularly, that means you don't believe in alpha. And that doesn't mean we don't invest. It just means to have an index fund for you, right?
That's it. Yeah. That's really
how do I study for my SIE without prior knowledge? Well, Aiden, everybody starts at some point in life as a blank slate, right? I mean,
we all do. Yeah.
Tabula rasa. Here's what I would say, Aiden. When I want to learn something that I have no prior knowledge of, I was just telling you about propane here on my off-grid location. This is just the difference in my brother and I. This guy is named Scott. He's the propane guy. I mean, I love listening for hours talk about propane. I learned a whole heck of a lot. My brother told me that he doesn't like listening to Scott for hours about propane. He's not interested, right? I said, well, Chris, I'm interested in things that go kaboom and what makes them go kaboom. I personally, Aiden, I like to start by reading a book on that subject, cover to cover in close to one setting as possible to kind of get an overview of what that body of knowledge is. So my recommendation would be if you're starting your SIE, you have no prior knowledge, whatever license exam manual you have, I would try and read it without actually trying to understand anything. Just kind of see what's between the covers. I wouldn't be taking notes. My God, some people never get to the end because they're taking so many notes, they're rewriting the text. Once I've read the book cover to cover, now you do have some knowledge, right? Now you're ready to my next thing after I read a book cover to cover is, okay, let me read unit 1, which I've already read, but now I'm reading it for depth. Now I'm reading it for understanding. And now I'm going to do the chapter quiz or unit quiz on that. I'm going to get a 70, 75. I like 75. Move on to unit 2, reading for depth, understanding, or taking notes if you want. Please don't highlight the first reading. I mean, I've had people, Ryan, who've highlighted their entire book. I said, well, now you need to buy a different color highlighter and go back and read a depth chapter, unit 2, or whatever it is. Now pay attention here. This is Brian's recommendation. I love it. Brian thinks on unit 2, after you do your quiz, you don't move on. That what you should do now is a custom quiz of unit 1 and 2. So you're always bringing that caboose up. And I'm a big fan of that. So that would be my recommendation. The way I would lay the base to begin with, my first activity as a test taker would be to read the book cover to cover and as close to one setting as possible. Now, Aiden, this guy was incredulous when I said that. He said, how long is that going to take? I said, well, I don't know. I mean, why did you read for an hour? Figure out how many pages you read, divide the page count by your read rate, and that'll tell you. Now, again, I'm an OG. I get it. Some people don't read anymore. If you're not going to read, well, good news for you. Brian has videos. I have videos. And you can watch the video to put a dent in the reading or watch it afterward to reinforce the reading. Or I guess if you're telling me you're just not going to read the book, well, then I guess it's watch the video and do the quizzes. Now, I know that Notman Marks, they emphasize watching the videos instead of reading. But again, I realize I may be old school, and I think you should read it. What do you think, Brian?
You know what I think.
Yeah, he's got his little inverted pyramid there, right?
Well, yeah, that's the textbook, because I know what it's like. We all know what it's like to read 500 pages of textbook. My God, especially if we have no background in any of this, like me, when I first started, right? My degree is in science. It's not in finance or any of these sorts of things.
Yeah, it's not a Russian novel.
And after each unit, right, 10 to 12 questions, each unit, 10 to 12 questions. And then you want to also do a quiz that includes both units. And as you get further into the textbook, right, as Dean says, you want to bring up the caboose. You always do a unit test, and then you do a cumulative unit test with all the preceding units. And so you just work your way up. And Dean, I think it's important that we emphasize our videos are not generally meant to be standalone solutions.
Or supplements, that's it.
Right? We're a bridge.
Listen, I get Brian all the time. People say, man, $100 at the Kaplan Q Bank, $150, I'm done. I go, no. That's a supplement. You know, Brian and I consider ourselves to be a bridge between when you've done all your stuff with STC or Kaplan or Notman Marks. We're now a bridge between that and the actual exam. Right? Oh, look at that. I like that. I got my blue face Submariner there, my blue Sapphire. Wow. I'm looking big.
That's where the distillation occurs, right, Dan?
Yeah, exactly.
What I do. Yeah.
Right on. All right, Yasha. Hi from Beverly Hills. Yasha, be safe. Man, my goodness. We've got oh my goodness, for sure. I'm totally with you, Yasha. I'm totally with you. It's nice to see when neighbors help neighbors. You know, people, you know, you get to see humanity at both levels, right? You get to see humanity when it's ugly. I've dealt, Yasha, in some nonprofits where, you know, we're giving food and stuff to homeless folks. And it's really, I've seen people who, you know, who are trying to jump the line ahead of young mothers who have kids that we need to take care of first. And you go, come on, where's your humanity? But I have seen a lot of these short stories too, Yasha, in Southern California about neighbors helping neighbors, you know, rooting the firefighters on, you know, and it really is emotionally satisfying. And I'm sure it means a lot to the people like yourself that are in the midst of it, actually dealing with it. Right. So thank you. Be safe. Be safe. Remember, I joke, it's just stuff at the end of the day, right? I mean, I've been very blessed, but at the end of the day, it's just stuff. As I told my brother with his propane situation, Chris, you know, it's not an economic thing about getting this thing fixed. We have the economics. It's about a safety issue, right? It doesn't matter if, you know, you're not safe, right? All right. Well, Amir, I think I already gave you your victory ring, so we'll give it to you again. Woo! Another victory. Woo! What regulations are more heavily testable? So I will answer this first, and then I'll turn it over to my friend Brian. I take the liberty, Michael, of changing law and regulations as it relates to NASA exams to law and registrations. So it's not so much, I don't think of it as regulations that are being heavily tested as much as registrations. Right? How do we register a security? If not, why not? How do we register an investment advisory firm? If not, why not? How do we register a broker-dealer? If not, why not? How do we register agents of broker-dealers? So I would say registrations, I think, would be what I would add to that, is being heavily testable. Brian, your thoughts on answering that question?
Absolutely. On the Series 66, right, it's almost half the exam. It's 45 of the 100 graded questions. And just to give you some anecdotal background, most people score highest on the laws and regs than they do on the other topics.
Yes, Michael.
Despite what the textbooks will lead you to believe, because they're, 189 pages of that mess. It's a lot to get through. But Dean is exactly right. It's not just laws and regs, but it's laws and registration on persons and their registrations. That's a little less than a quarter of those 45 questions, right? We also have disclosures, right? The investment brochure, all sorts of disclosure because of our fiduciary capacity, right? We have ethics, and there are a lot of ethics questions.
Yeah, 14, 15 disclosures, 10, 12, that's 25 of your 45. That's like a quarter of the exam. And then registrations. Now, good news for you, Michael. Brian and I have done a podcast episode on the 66. And Brian, we got to do some more of those, but we get so many people who say that has contributed to their testing victory. If you are new with us, Michael, Sandoval, oh man, I hope you're not part of the Scandoval clan. No, I'm joking. My mom likes to watch reality TV. Sometimes I watch with her, and there's one of their reality TV stars of Vanderpump Rules, a guy named Tom Sandoval. Oh my goodness, people hate him. I kind of think, oh my goodness, if he wasn't a reality star, it wouldn't be a problem. But Michael, if you're new to us, we link in the video description videos we discuss to go into more in depth. And so I will, Michael, link to the podcast series that Brian and I did on the 66. I think somebody asked about how do you start? I, on my channel, on every series, start the playlist with a podcast series overview of the entire exam, cover to cover. On 65 and 66, Brian joined me for that. And you can find those. I'll link to it, Michael. But I think what we call it, the Test Geek and Guru podcast or something. I think, the
Geek and the Guru. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't also forget, there's a content outline for all four of those.
Yes. And Michael,
content outline for the 66. Every one of you.
That's right. And Michael, the other thing that we started to say is respect the 66. And most sevens, there's no reason, Michael, you shouldn't have a pep in your step from having passed your 7. No reason for you not to feel good about yourself. But then people crack their 66 and they see some familiar stuff. And they go, oh, I know this stuff. Get a little bit of hubris. And Brian's point, they end up missing the investment section because on that section, there's lots of stuff that don't show up on the 7. Analytical methods, a lot more stuff on balance sheets. So make sure you respect each of these exams in and of themselves. Don't bring into the next exam in your testing journey. I'm 2-0, 3-0. Here I come. Right. So 61-71 passing today. I'm not sure, Amir, I understand the 61-71 to passing to. Oh, there we go. I got it, Amir. So I think what you're saying is your practice test scores were 61-71 and you passed. You know what I attribute that to, Amir? I attribute to that not being getting down on yourself. That you could finish strong. You stayed the course. You were resilient. And when you went down there, even though we'd like to see higher scores, we would have bet on you passing anyways, particularly on that 71. But I would imagine the reason you passed, Amir, is you were confident in the execution of your study plan. As confident you could be with those scores. Yeah, like better, but you were confident in yourself. And most importantly, you were confident in your answers. So, we don't give extra credit for testing victories, but I think you deserve one because sometimes that's tougher, particularly when you're getting negative feedback. Well, you don't know me the world, but Amir, in some cultures, not our culture, you would have to pay me as El Jefe 10% of your first year gross commissions. No, yeah, not necessary. How do you pass the securities? Well, Aiden, I think we answered your question. How do you pass? You execute Aiden, a dedicated, a disciplined, and an organized study plan. I think Brian and I gave you some advice on how to create a dedicated, a disciplined, and organized study plan. By the way, Aiden, passing these exams, I'll defer to Brian after I'm done, is more a function of being dedicated, disciplined, and organized. Dedicated, disciplined, and organized. That's more important than how smart you are. Right? There's very smart men and women who don't pass this test because they're not dedicated, they're not disciplined, they're not organized. P.S. The less of those, if you're missing one of those, the less dedicated or disciplined you are, well, then you got to add organization or vice versa. What do you think, Brian? How do you pass exams?
You know, Dean, as long as you and I have been in this business, you know, we get this question quite often. It's a good question. You know, and my first reaction is, well, don't you have a broker dealer that's helping you in this journey at all? And
Yes,
but
exactly.
regardless of that, that's why, I don't know, 5, 7, 8, 10 years ago, I wrote a little blog on, it's only a 2-pager, how best to study and pass your FINRA and NASAA exams. Shoot me an email. I'd be more than happy to send it to you.
And
a very dedicated, disciplined plan.
Aiden also use the channel search bar. So last week, Brian gave us a great discussion called the 3 pillars. What'd you call it? The 3 pillars?
That's exactly right. That's right.
And I have clipped that. I haven't posted it yet to the channel, but what I do sometimes when Brian or myself, talk about something, oh, that'd be a nice clip to just kind of take out of the hour-long video. I'll tell you what I'll do, Aiden. I'll post that this evening for you. It's a little clip where last week somebody asked Brian about this, and he did his 3 pillars. And I'll send you a copy, Brian, so you can post it on your channel. Brian does have some free stuff. He has a YouTube channel that's free. His vast majority of his content's behind his paywall, obviously, because, he's a greedy bastard. No, I'm joking. But we will link to that video for him.
Lesson 1 of every one of my videos goes through the 3-pillar process.
There you go.
It's not different. It's the same for every exam.
I've completely read the manual. Well, we got to give you kudos, Cooper. I mean, I think that's where to start. Gone through a lot of practice. It felt great last week, getting over 70. This week, I can't get more than 60. Are you screwed? Well, I don't know when your test date, but the answer is no. As we said, you got to stay resilient. And I think sometimes this could be possible. I don't know when your test date is, so please, Cooper, put that into the chat. But if you are a week or 2 weeks out, I might tell you to take a day off. You might be getting too close to the material, and you might be, overthinking things. Are you screwed? I think absolutely not. The stinking thinking of thinking you're screwed is what will do you in. Not that you got a 60. It's the response to the 60. Like, I'm going to keep working. I'm going to continue executing my study plan. Right? Oh, I missed that Donna had that testing victory. All right. Woo! Right on. I love it. It's always very gratifying when our content contributes to testing victories. That is what it is all about. So love that. Passed my 10. Woo! So Ashley, you are half a sales supervisor. I've got some good news over you, Ashley, and we'll see if Brian agrees with me. I think the 10 is way more difficult than that.
Exactly. I knew what you were going to say.
Shocked, Ashley, if I don't want to send out negative vibes, but I would be shocked if you have passed your 10 and then you missed the mark on your 9. Now, I would add to this. I don't know, Ashley, are you familiar with our Reddit Series 24 community? It's for 9s, 10s, and 24s. If you're not, you might want to participate over there, and please post your testing victory over there. I always love it when we post it. But we have the honor and privilege right now of Brian Marks of Knopman Marks has been contributing to some of our social media places over there. Anyways, the reason that reminded me of it is both Brian and I, Brian Marks, had somebody asking about 4s and 9s. And I think Brian's on the same page because I had that conversation with Brian Lee as well, is that most people think there's going to be a lot more option minutia strategy-wise than there actually is when it's more about sales supervision. So that would be, I guess, what I would tell you about the 9. But I have no thought that if you can pass the slog that is the 10, that you're going to pass the 9. Brian, do you agree with Brian Marks and I about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we mentioned this many times that the 4 and the 9 is not about different option strategies. I mean, you got that on the Series 7. That's where all that is. It's about supervising reps who are recommending and putting option trades together.
I totally agree with you. And then Amir, well, stay tuned. We have some more of those coming. So not always do I get permission. By the way, people, I have haters and they think that I'm taking advantage of people who I tutor when I post their shared screen finals or their tutoring replays. I always have permission to do that. So if you get tutoring from me, you don't need to worry that I'm, Sabrosa, that I'm taping it and I'm going to put it up on the channel. That's not true. Sometimes, like I had Gabby, and if you're watching that video, I should probably edit my videos. Brian was shocked when I told him I don't do any editing. I just, put them up. But in Gabby's case, she hadn't settled up with me. And I don't think it's coercion, but I said, hey, Gabby, what do you want to do? Do you want to pay me the $250 for the hour, or do you want to give me permission to put it on the channel? So every once in a while I do that, but I don't consider that to be coercion. There you go. On to the 63. So Donna is an agent of a broker dealer, right? If you're taking a 63 after 7, you're an agent of the broker dealer. If you're taking a 66, you're going to be both an agent of a broker dealer and an investment advisor rep. Boom. Tomorrow. Oh, you start the study, Amir. Okay. I was going to say, if you're taking the test tomorrow, what are you doing here? Go get some rest. For the Series 66, what advice do you have for overcoming the paragraph style questions? I have 2 recommendations, Michael, for this. One is when I get long ass questions, I would like to read the question once just for context. I call that RTFQ, particularly on NASAA exams. I like to know, what am I being asked? I had a guy, tough love. I said, you don't need tutoring because right now you can't even read the question and figure out what you're being asked. The second thing I like to do is I like to read the last sentence first of the paragraph, so that before I read the paragraph, I kind of know where it ends up, right? Sometimes I read that last sentence, I go, pfft. The other thing I like to do is read the full answer set. Sometimes before I read the paragraph, I read the answers that are offered to me and are available. And for example, Michael, if I have like an answer that says, as stipulated in the prospectus, I go, man, I don't know what the question is, but that's a hell of an answer. I like it a lot. So I sometimes like to read the answer set just to see, what answer is going to be offered to me. Now, NASAA exams particularly, I think, are challenging because, I wish that I think of it, Brian, as a cast of characters. And when I watch a play, sometimes there's a playbill and they tell me who these cast members are. They might even give me like a synopsis of the acts and the scenes. And I always find that helpful. Like, okay, who's that guy again? Oh, it's Iago. Oh, yeah, he's the bad guy, right? Now, I like to do the same thing on NASAA exams, Michael. I like to read once just to say, am I being asked about an investment advisor? If so, federally covered or not? Oh, bastards. It's not about an investment advisor. It's about an investment advisor rep. Well, almost got me on that. Okay, are they a federally covered or not? The firm they work for. So I would get comfortable. Your thoughts are, one more point, Michael, before I turn over to Brian. I've got good news for you, Michael. Brian is as big a jerk as the persons who actually write the exam. And so if you have his practice test, he too has some confusing paragraph style questions, right? I call them sometimes gotcha questions. Now his heart's in the right spot. Sometimes people get very upset with my friend Brian. They'll send me some, oh man, he got me on this. I go, well, that's how the test is. Your thoughts, Brian?
There's a couple of things. The one thing you mentioned about reading the last sentence first, because that's the one that's got the question mark in. That way, you already know where they're heading before you get distracted by half the crap that's in the test question. The second thing, since you're working on the 66, I'm going to say this, and I don't know if Dean's going to agree with this or not, that the textbook and the practice questions from the textbook tend to be much more verbacious than the real test.
Yes, I do.
And the answer choices. So I don't think the real test questions go that far, that deeply as some of those practice questions, especially on the 66.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
So don't worry about them too much.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I do think one of the good analogies, I guess I would say, is that these NASA exams are more of a reading test than perhaps some of the other exams, right? And you got to read carefully. It's the other ways, Michael. I always want you to have a good night's rest because you want on all these exams, FINRA NASA, your reading skills to be in top form. And I know that when I'm tired, my reading skills are greatly diminished. I tell people, Brian, I love on the New York Times on weekend, they have this quiz you can take on history and current events. I'm all into that. And sometimes when I'm tired and I'm taking the quiz, I don't read the full question. And it said dinosaurs, and I got to put it in the chronological order. I go, dinosaurs, easy, man. That became before the Roman Republic. And then I didn't read the question. It says, when did they discover fossils of a dinosaur in Montana? I'm like, okay, that's on me, right? And I didn't blame my lack of knowledge deficit. I blamed that I hadn't had my cup of coffee. I'm not properly caffeinated, whatever the case may be. Taking the SIE Saturday, first try was canceled with the winter storm in North Carolina. Man, Mother Nature. Maybe it was an omen. Looking for a big pass. I think you'll get it, Tom. As I always say, Tom, I think the difference in tragedy and comedy is timing. So in theory, the extra time should be productive to you. And if you're getting mid-70s, I think you should have the expectation of a pass. Now, I don't believe in being fearful. It'd be interesting what Brian says. Sometimes people get fearful and they want to move their test date. And I say, no, I don't think you should move your test date. I think you should, organize your life in such a way that you're going to go for it on whatever test date you have. Because when people then reschedule, not because of Mother Nature like you, Tom, they get an artificial sense of relief. They feel better, but they haven't passed the test. The dragon is still in the cave and still needs to be slayed. So I don't believe in moving test dates if it's not some, extraordinary kind of a thing. Your thoughts, Brian?
Pretty much the same. There are some circumstances where I may recommend someone to push it back. And
well, if they're not a deficit, for sure. Like we've had people, I'm sure, Brian, you've had it, and they're below like 60. And I just think, the stars would have to line up. And why are you going to go down there? And then remember too, Tom, I'm with you too, Brian, is your career at risk? So I'm with you. So there are definitely.
And your spouse has planned a trip to the Bahamas for 10 days before your exam date. There's all kinds of things. But generally,
I had a guy, he told me he was going to take his study materials to the Bahamas. I go, are you nuts? No, you need to be enjoying yourself. Right. I don't know, Donna. You talk about Sydney. I think, yes, she's a very nice girl. Tom Fink, take the yeah, of course, Amir. Everybody take that.
Always.
People say, how close is that the actual exam? Well, it's a FINRA practice test. It's a FINRA exam.
They're the ones who like to test.
I also, Tom, have a doppelganger version of that. So two things you can do. You can watch me actually take that exam. Hit pause and think what your answer is and hit play. The other thing you can do is I wrote a doppelganger version of it. So I took the FINRA practice exam for the SIE, and I used the same answer sets, but I came up with different questions, which I think makes the test challenging because all of the distractors, that's the technical name for wrong answers. Now, I was teasing my friend Brian about what a jerk he is, but as a test writer. But you know what I mean sometimes by that is he's really good at coming up with wrong answers that sound good.
Exactly.
Right. And if you're not reading, and people call me, I say, well, read Brian's question again, RTFQ. So what I did was take their distractors, which are wrong answers, but could have been right to different questions and wrote different questions. So I recommend those too. I'll link to those in the video description for you. But it would be a sin not to take it. Second point, I would take it 2-3 days out. So Amir, sometimes I have people that tell me they took that exam. I had a guy yesterday in social media said he got 100 on that. I said, well, okay, now be honest with us. Was that your 6th time through? Was that your 7th time through? That has zero diagnostic utility now. But if it's your first time through it, 2-3 days out, I think it's a really good mark to have. Sydney, what's your progress? Oh man, I'm sorry. She already left us. I can tell you that Sydney and I have been together for a long time. You know, I always joke in tutoring, it's not a transaction, it's a relationship. And Sydney and I have a relationship that has goes back. By the way, she spent thousands of dollars with other tutors. And I think, she was still here, we could ask her. But the impression I got is that they were kind of making her feel like this isn't for her. There's no way she's ever going to pass. And, she has resources, good news. And, she, got a refund from one of them, didn't get a refund from the other. But she's been with me for a long time. I don't hold myself out as being a, Tony Robbins or Zig Ziglar or a motivational person about taking these tests. But, if we can add to your confidence, have your confidence go up and your anxiety go down, and we can get that spread widening. And I think that's really what Sydney meant. I told her she could actually tutor this stuff. She knows it so well. But again, it was more about psyche in her case, I think, than knowledge deficit. I think she's going to do exactly what I tell her to do, because now I have some credibility with Sydney. Other tutors failed, but Dean got her through it. And I'm going to tell her exactly what Brian and I tell everybody they should do. And I think that she'll do it, which is, read the book. And I told her to take a couple, a week or two to refresh and reset. Right. So, if you've had an arduous journey, you probably want to, refresh and reset. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Don. I'm glad to hear that. I think we've done that one. No, unfortunately, there is not. There is not.
You got a pretty
Brian,
good
there you go, Brian. Brian, I don't, he's being funny, but he's being truthful as well. I think the strongest correlation for all of these exams are Brian's practice tests. Now, be careful what I'm saying. Listen carefully. I don't know how people don't understand what I'm about to say. If all you want is the PDF of Brian's practice test and his rationale, he will sell it to you. And I think it's like $25 with the discounts like 20. I highly recommend it. I get no, compensation from Brian. Maybe we'll discuss that next time we're having steak and bourbon and biscuit. But I just recommend because I think it's the best correlation. And, every once in a while, somebody will take us up on that. And then they'll say, all I got was the PDF. Now, Brian's been kind enough to let us put that on the channel, and you can watch me do it. Right. And, but then you don't have the PDF. Now, the reason I love the PDF is what I always recommend people do if they do have Brian's PDF of that, is that they take their Marco and make what I call poor man's flashcards. They actually take Brian's question, Marco the wrong answers. This is the night before. At night before, read Brian's question and his right answers. Marco, because you don't want to pay attention to his distractors, because I told you he's pretty good on those. And you could lock on to the wrong thing, right? And in the morning of, read that. Today in social media, Brian, we had somebody, I know it frosts our people who don't like us, but this person, let's see if they delete this. They said, I literally had 4 or 5 questions that I thought were pretty spot on, very similar to Brian's questions. As I told you, Brian and I don't like, well, Brian's better than me. I sometimes talk about things that are on the test. That, I was teaching a SID today. I got a little carried away. And good news, the class said, is this on the test? I go, no. Why are you talking about it? I just thought we should talk about it. But Brian's very good. He wouldn't have a practice question in his practice test, and unless he thought it was something you would have to deal with on the actual exam.
Yeah, I'm looking for practice finals, as we all are. That's going to be a diagnostic as to how we're going to do on the real test. In the beginning, when I first started doing this, the boss kept asking me, is this guy going to pass? Is this gal going to pass? Is he going to pass? Is she going to pass? I had to come up with some tool where I could go up to the boss and say, that guy's got every chance. This guy could teach the thing tomorrow. He's got confidence issue. He overthinks and overanalyzes, but he knows the stuff. So if I came up to the boss and looked him straight in the eye, and I can tell him that based on these scores. So we're looking for test scores, practice final scores that are close diagnostics to what someone will eventually get. Now, again, you got to realize there's always variance. There's always a standard deviation to it. But I like to have that deviation as small as possible. I can show you a lot of practice finals that will way overgrade or way undergrade what you actually score on the test. So that's what I've always looked for.
I've actually put your banner up there. So if you just want to buy the PDF, by the way, it's kind of like an all-in situation. So if you go all in with Brian for his video series on any of the exams, you get this as part of your package. So this is would be
that's my email. Give me an email.
Yeah, I sent you the email. So if you're interested, just contact Brian, and he's more than happy to send you the PDF. Remember, for the $20 and something, you don't get the videos, and you don't get the class notes. You don't get all the other stuff, but you get quite a bit actually. So
Dean and I go so far back. Like we said, it's like next month is like the 30th anniversary that we first knew each other. Yeah. And, we've been simpatico on so many things because we grew up in this business, first doing it, passing our tests, and then starting to teach all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And we've seen all of these. We've seen all the standard deviation. That's why we continue to collaborate.
I agree with you. Now, 26, I think we should show more love. I hate to say this, Bryce, but someday you're going to need a 24. Right. I don't have any content on my channel for 26. 26 is supervising 6, but the study author would be no different than anything else we discussed. I think the 26 can be challenging because I think it assumes more of a general securities background than perhaps somebody taking a 26 actually has. I have no idea, Donna, what you teach. Right?
Start with the content outline for the 26. That's
always, Bryce, right? We said these are available. I would always have them next to me on my desk when I'm studying just to kind of confirm what it is. I don't know, Donna, what UTI is. Do you know, Brian, what UTI is?
A urinary tract infection.
Yeah, I don't know. Donna, if you could give us more context, that would be helpful. I do not, Bryce. I do not have a 26 and 60-minute video. I could probably make one. I probably should. I don't think 26 gets as much love as they should. So, right. I could put up a practice exam. I just don't have any content presently. If you nag me enough, Bryce, feel free to give me a nudge. And I would consider one of two things. I didn't say I'm going to do this. I would consider making a 26 and 60-minute video, or maybe doing a 26 practice test with you on a shared screen final that we could put up for folks, and maybe do that. Maybe that's a way to get some content up there. Man, I'm with you, Cooper. I said, I heard Cooper. I don't know. They said you should be careful listening to the scanners because it might confuse people more than it's worth. 14,000 firefighters. Cooper, all I can think when I see these 14,000 firefighters and things like that is Mother Nature. Man,
it's getting to the point where we're having one of these almost once a year somewhere.
Crazy, right? Crazy.
The year before that, it was Maui.
And I know people don't want to hear it, Cooper, but sometimes I see, and I kind of get it, like a fireman saying, "I don't know what you expect us to be able to do when 100 miles in, so we can't fly, and there's smoke everywhere." I'm like, man. There you go. Well, thank you. Pass the Series 7 testing. Victor. I had 3 to 4. I think 1 or 2 is usually there.
Yeah.
So I think they test you on it for sure. I usually tell people they can expect 1 or 2. So I think 3 or 4. Every draw is different, Joe. So what you hope is you're prepared, and then it ends up being a dream draw. Instead of a face of death draw. So that's what you're hoping. If we feel we need to help one-on-one, well, Brian also tutors. I tutor, and if you want to book tutoring with me, Brian's a little more selective on tutoring than I am. But you can go to my booking page, deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. We're coming to the end of our time together, by the way. And if you win the drawing, which we do at the end of our live streams every Tuesday, what you win, if you go to the booking page, is anything that's available there free, which would normally be associated with paid students. So if you win the drawing, you can go sign up for the weekly Q&A jam session. You can sign up for the office hours. You can sign all of the above. You can sign up from now until eternity. You can sign up for any classes. I don't presently have a class up, but that's how you access my booking page. Most of the stuff on the booking page is paid stuff, paid tutoring, paid shared screen finals, paid things. Now, Brian, we gave you his email, and he may or may not tutor. I don't know, Brian. You don't tutor. He wants you to be in the right spot.
The only reason is because I don't want to work as much as Dean does.
So, well, there you go.
Really it.
So I always joke in the beauty contest, you're either a judge or a contestant. Yeah. My booking page, you are the judge and I'm the contestant. On Brian, you're the contestant and he's the judge. He decides whether you're ready for tutoring. That looks like I'm on the banners instead of our comments. All right, Brian, you're in charge of our words here. Spencer has passed. Thank you, Spencer. Ashley scored the 72 for Series 9 today. I like that, Ashley. You're in good shape. I think you told us earlier you passed the 10. I can't imagine you're going to not pass your 9, so I'm seeing you positive test 5s. Taking 65 into month, plenty of time. Pass both. Okay, those of you who had QIDs, remember, send me the QID. I'm more than happy to do those QIDs. To be honest with you, the problem is I'm afraid if I bring them up in the live stream, I might accidentally kill the live stream. I'm not as technically proficient as I'd like to be. And the Q&A jam session, no problem, or I can make a video and put it on the channel for you. So send me those QIDs. Marcel, we just now seeing you. We know, Marcel, you're looking to get something on the schedule. Let's do it. Brian, okay. So I think Brian might be a little too quick on the trigger. Let's see if Brian's a little too quick on the trigger. What I mean by that, Brian, is that I'm not sure it'll pick it up before I've actually put it in to the system. So let me put it into the system here and see if it picks up those. Hope. Now, if you're going to put it in, you got to put it in exactly as Brian has it there on the screen. Okay, now let me go find. Boom, boom, boom.
This is for the drawing.
This is for the drawing, access to the booking page. Anything on the booking page is available to you. I want to make sure you're clear on that, because sometimes Brian thinks they think they've won an hour of tutoring at $250 at a date and time of their choosing. That is not what you win. Right? So be careful with that. I mean, I'm not telling you you're going to be able to call me and say, hey, I'd like an hour of tutoring on Thursday at 1 p.m. That's not what you want. Now, by the way, my free activities on the channel are subject to change based on people who are paying. Right? So it looks like it did pick up that. We have 14 entries here.
Good.
Okay, last call. Any other people want to participate? Yeah, feel free to join us too. This is free for everybody. If you go to the booking page, next Wednesday, we're doing our monthly book thing. It's She-Wolves. If you want to join us monthly for that, that's free. The weekly Q&A jam session is free. You can register for that if you'd like. That's on Wednesday as well. And then office hours are not free, but if you win the drawing, they are free. Office hours are for my paid students. All right, here we go.
There you go.
All right, Thomas. So as I said, you don't need to do anything to claim your winnings. Just go to the booking page, deantenneytutoring.setmore.com, and sign up for any free thing you'd like. And the office hours, I'll post those later, and you can sign up for that as well. But if you do need to reach me, you can reach me at dean@guruexamprep.com. And, if you have some ideas of what you'd like to talk about, I'm more than happy sometimes based on that discussion or email to put something up on the class schedule and do it in a class format where other people can participate. All right. Let's go back. Boom. Thank you for joining us. We're here every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Arizona time. Remember that inch by inch, your exam is a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. And Brian, you say?
With all your anxiety, remember this. Keep it simple. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
There you go. All right, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday, 5 p.m. Arizona time from our off-grid location. We'll get some more kicks on Route 66.